So,
we will continue with our discussion about market equilibrium. Uh, you may recall that in my last lecture, I discussed about the equilibrium and its implications for the price and quantity. This was the diagram which I had drawn there, supply and demand. This was the quantity demanded and supplied, or you can just say that this is the quantity supplied and this was the price. We try to understand that if the price is above equilibrium, for instance, price is P1 or price is below equilibrium, then what are the implications of this? So we try to understand that if price is above equilibrium, this quantity supplied will be in excess. Supply is more than, you can see the demand curve. So here its supply will be more than the demand and price will fall till it reaches the equilibrium point. If it is the case, then at this point, supply is only this much, whereas demand is this much. So there is an excess demand. Demand is greater than supply, therefore price will move up. So this was the situation there, that if there is a divergence or the deviation from, there are forces that will try to bring it back to equilibrium. Now this concept of equilibrium, you know that prices will reach to that point. You know that in textbook we can find that demand and supply curve are still, but in real life it does not happen, you know, in that way. In real life, what happens that the forces of demand and supply, they are in constant state of flux. But the idea that if demand is greater than supply, so there are there are effect on the price and quantity is well-established concept. Now, how far it will take that demand and supply will lead to equilibrium. So it may vary from market to market. For example, in financial market, I am not talking about the goods market. If the demand for a particular kind of share, there are forces which are very fast because in other cases also the demand and supply may affect it. In the last part of my lecture, I discussed about the shift in demand curve and supply curve. So there was some confusion regarding. So what I am discussing here now is that because of the change in price above and below. But you know that there are certain forces which bring about shift in demand curve, which are other than the price. For example, income may increase, and or change in the shift in supply, and because of like technology may affect supply curve. So in the last part, I was trying to explain that the implication of this shift, which is caused by factors other than the price. So there are various other variables which affect the demand and supply. So the idea was to understand if the demand and supply, is shifted as a result of change in any of these variables. For demand, it may be income, it may be price of substitute products or complementary products, or the expectation of a future price, and in supply side, it may be the price of the raw material, the technological the effect on the demand and supply, and other conditions which may be there, like expectation about future price. So, and then we had various kind of situation where demand and supply both increase. There is a shift, or both and demand and supply together they fall. And in other situation, it may be that one increases or decreases. And we can analyze several situations. And for example, we can start with a very simple one. For example, this situation may be here. And this is demand. This is supply. So, for example, we can assume that the supply remains constant and demand increases. So because of this, it's clear cut, that the quantity the supplied will increase, but at the same time, price will also go up from P to P1 or other way around. But if both demand and supply undergo change, then we have to look into the implications. For example, demand may go up, supply may come down, or demand may fall and supply may go up. Both are changing. Either then we have to find out certain implications are clear. For example, if demand increases, supply increases, one thing is clear, that the quantity supplied will be more at this. But what about the price? Price will depend upon whether the increase in demand is greater than the supply, then price will increase. But if supply has increased by greater magnitude than the demand, then price may fall. So unless we are aware of the magnitude, then we cannot say about one variable, that is. So in my slides, all these things I explain in detail. Go through, and when I have, if there is any doubt, then I take after I finish first unit. Then any doubt I will take up. Unless you draw yourself and find out the thing, it will not be clear. And I would advise you that in order to understand this thing, you have to draw the demand and supply curve as given in my slides. For instance, let me just show to you, and you have to work out yourself. Like demand and like this. This is one situation. D dash price was this much now. Now we have to introduce also this increase in supply. Supply will also increase from S to S. Now you see that this is the new situation, and like now this magnitude of increase the supply, this shown in graph, it is greater or lesser than this. So when you are drawing in the graph, then the increase in demand. So for in graph, you have to look at this. For example, if it is exactly the same, then the price will not, quantity may increase and the price may not increase. Price, for example, demand is low, increase in demand is lower than the supply, the price may fall, but quantity may increase. So this has to be worked out. Unless you work out yourself, then it will not be given. Now, there are some other aspects of demand and supply and equilibrium, which I will briefly apprise you. Now, you see that I have just discussed with you that demand and supply, and when they interact, an equilibrium, quantity and price is determined. Then, but the thing is that the price which is received by the seller and price paid by the buyer, they are equal. In real life, it may not be the situation that the price received by seller may be slightly lower than the equilibrium price, because there are certain intermediaries which we call middlemen. They may take a part, portion of that price, that because they facilitate transactions and therefore they may take it. So the transaction cost may be involved. It may be very small amount, but that intermediation, so that may differ in real life. So that you can understand this, the middleman, the entire movement from, agitation was that the middleman takes away and the farmer do not receive the full amount, the price. So middlemen, in some cases, they can garner the price with the sellers receive, the producers receive, may be lower than that. And that is why we have to take into account this also. Just wanted to bring to you. Now, in also the price and the quantity which I have discussed in equilibrium may not be equal. For example, demand and supply. This is the price, this is quantity. This is the demand, this is the supply curve. Equilibrium price is P. Whereas the quantity provided at this price is Q. It may be the case that because of certain social, political factors, this is the economic equilibrium. The price may be fixed either above this or below this. The government may come in the picture and may try to fix a price which may be above the market equilibrium price. Demand, if leave the demand and supply forces, then it will and R may say that this is the. In first case, government say that you cannot sell below this. For example, whereas the price equilibrium price is P1, whereas government may fix that this is the price at which you have to sell it. Or in certain cases, the price equilibrium price may be this, but the government can fix that you cannot charge more than this. There are several examples of this. So let us go through these. For instance, sometimes government fix a floor or a ceiling. Floor means that you cannot sell below this, and ceiling means that you cannot charge more than this. For example, in certain cases like minimum wage, that you have to pay this much. Demand and supply for labor may dictate that the remuneration should be this much, whereas government say that you have to pay at least this much, not this much, this price. The compensation or the salary or wages rent. So it may fix it. So let us see in diagram what are the agriculture produce price. If you allow the market forces, the price may be, let us say, this much and quantity, but government say no, you have to sell above this. So at this point, there are certain implications for the shortage and the excess supply. So above equilibrium. So this may be the floor that you can't sell lower than this. So let us see in the diagram what happens. Now, for instance, the government, this is the equilibrium price for, let us say, it is an essential item. Sometimes, governments come out with the, like in other countries, bread. There is a fixed price for bread also. Or let us say this is the rent. Apartments are very less. So the government, what the government can prescribe, and it is in not a developing country, even advanced country like US government has prescribed that the rent charges, for example, New York and other, you cannot charge for allow the demand and supply for housing, for apartment. It may be situation like this. The demand supply it may be like this. But what the government may say that okay, you should not charge 3 rupees, but 2 rupees. And because of this thing, what may happen at lower price, there may be shortage. The producers will be willing to supply less. So what has happened that because of this ceiling below equilibrium, a shortage may occur. And as I told you that normally it happens that for essential commodities, it happens that in India normally breads are the chapatis they are made house-made, but in other countries like, the breads are bought from the bakeries, So not only happens that you fix a ceiling, sometimes it happens that the price of bread is lower than some other thing. So substitution may take place. If price of bread is, just I will give an example. Fodder for the animals. So if the price of bread becomes lower than the price of fodder, then people may start feeding their, the pet with this kind. So various situation. When I take up inflation in macroeconomics, I will come back to this point. So because of this, it may happen that shortage may occur. And then another situation may be like farm produce, the entire agitation, that the government should come out. Now the equilibrium price may be that wheat can be sold. Just forget about ice cream. Quantity of wheat. Okay. Now the price may be 3 rupees. Just an example, or 30. Just add 0 or something like that. Now government may set a price that this is the floor. You can't sell below this, above equilibrium, and government is support price that will buy. It will allow the demand and supply forces. It will be so. This is the support provided by the government in form of subsidies. And because of this, at higher price there are surplus, and you can see that the surplus around. So because of the if you allow market forces, then it may work out. But because of the social, political, and other considerations, government may intervene in the market and may try to set a price which may be either above equilibrium or below equilibrium. If it is sets a price below equilibrium, then that you can't charge more than that is called a ceiling. If your price is set above equilibrium, it means the floor. That is the minimum price one can sell in the market. Like that. So especially the farm subsidies, not only in developing countries, but other countries also, entire the discussion in WTO that the developing countries, they provide the subsidies and they should reduce it. For example, if you look at the developed countries like Japanese economy, European economic, all these, they provide subsidies. So if you allow agriculture, then it means, but government provides subsidies to support them. So this is how the price control are carried out in the market by the intervention of the government in the market. All these are explained in that way in my slides. You can see the example along with the examples. Now coming to some other issues. The price control and other things. So far we have discussed about the demand and supply factors as if they are independent of others. For example, my consumption is independent of what others consume. Our X consumption is independent of what others consume. It means that we are not influenced by what others consume. But in real life, it is not the case. X consumption may be influenced by what others may consume. So that is why the demand may have a network effect. And there may be two kinds of effects. One may be positive, that if others are consuming, others also may demand. So if network is positive, which we call bandwagon effect, then demand may increase of that product. If it is negative, which we call a snob effect, demand may go down if others are consuming. And because of that, externalities, and that in a digital product, this network effect is the terminology is very commonly used. And one of the important implications of the digital product is that the more other people have it, for example, if you are using the same software or something like that, that will increase further demand, So that is why if for example, you have different, I'm using Zoom and you have only Google Meet, then we cannot meet, So that is why the similar software, so that is why there is a network effect. That terminology has been taken from that, So here in demand is the idea is that what others consume, then it, the peer and others, the society. So there is a relative, what others are consuming, it may affect it. We are not impervious of what others consume. We are affected by what others consume. We try to, like advertisement, like owners say envy and neighbors pride, like demonstration effect in the society. So it is a type of network externality, actually the type of demonstration effect which we find it, where our demand is affected by others. So one example of positive network externality is, that when people see it, what others like video game for children, they take fancy and they say that we will also buy that. So it is one of the major objectives that how marketers try to use it, so that is why the word bandwagon effect, to be in style and like that, so that the one is not out of sync and like that, and the fashion and fad are governed by that. So this is very common phenomenon. If others are consuming, other have purchased something, others may also follow suit. So, but in other case, it may happen that if everybody is using the same thing, then there may be certain people who may say that no, I will not, we will buy exclusive items, which unique items, to distinguish us from the rest, from the masses. So that is called a snob. The word look that is snob. To consider somebody inferior or somebody to. And here the meaning is, the meaning is that, exclusive items. So like rare work of art, designer, the clothing and made to order are very common phenomena, like, it said that 100 items are, so that is exclusive. So that is why the demand is affected by what others consume it. So in one case, which is bandwagon effect, which is very common, that the entire marketing strategies they may be focused on. But in other cases also they focus on exclusive, a segment, a very rich and affluent, maybe this class may be very rich and affluent, who would like to buy it. So that segment is, focused on. So that the segmentation of market is one of the important factors in marketing. You segment the market based on income, based on other factors. So that is why demand is not independent of, but it is also influenced by what others consume. So you should take note of these things, and that the factors behind demand, supply, and all that. I have gone through this.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, can this snob effect can be considered as an exception to the law of demand?
Yes, it is exception to law of demand. These are, isn't it? These are exceptions. You're correct.
Okay, sir.
And that demand, the entire, why it is assumed that we are not affected by what others consume. It is assumed that we are rational human beings, isn't it? So rationality demands that we will consider only which is good for us, not that we will not be influenced by others. But in real life, it is not the case, isn't it? So there are exceptions.
Yes.
There are exceptions to law of demand.
Okay, sir.
Otherwise, then and moreover, one more thing is there. Some people take it that if price of anything is high, then it may convey that it will be of high quality. No?
So that Veblen effect, right?
Yes, exactly. You're correct. Veblen effect. I have not used the word, but it is.
Okay, sir.
Any further question you have before I close? And we'll see you in the next class, and we'll discuss about the same time. Please use the same link. This was class, it was especially requested by Professor Star because he had some meeting. So the for classes, rest of the classes, use the link which I have already provided to you. Okay, and hopefully, inshallah, I'll provide the slides to you, all these PPTs today by itself, and I will provide on the same group to you.
Okay, sir.
मिस्टर इमरान, साफ छुपते भी नहीं, सामने आते भी नहीं। अजब पर्दा है कि आप चिलमन से लगे बैठे। इमरान साहब जो है न सुन रहे हैं ना समझ रहे हैं। चलिए कोई बात नहीं, कोई बात नहीं।
शायद इनका कैमरा ऑन रह गया।
कैमरा ऑन रह गया है, तो इसलिए तो मैं कह रहा हूँ साफ छुपते भी नहीं, सामने आते भी नहीं। चलिए कोई बात नहीं, सुन रहे होंगे।
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.